Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7 by 7. We're at episode number 1610, and yes, yesterday I said that we were going to talk about Star Wars Galaxy of Adventures and the implications that the announcement had for the adult audience, if you will, and the films of the sequel trilogy and beyond, but unfortunately, fate has intervened. Sometimes fate is nice in the way that it intervenes, and in this case it is not. We have to report on the sad news that Gloria Katz has passed away. She actually passed away on Sunday, and the public announcements have only hit yesterday, or yesterday from when this episode drops, today from when I'm actually recording it. She passed away on Sunday. She was 76 years old after a prolonged bout with ovarian cancer, and this was announced by her husband, Willard Huyck, who you probably know, and you probably know Gloria Katz as well, even if they are not names that are very, greatly and immediately associated with Star Wars. But their association with Star Wars and George Lucas goes all the way back to American Graffiti, and the fact that Gloria was one of the 3 screenwriters that was nominated for an Academy Award for American Graffiti, along with her husband Willard Huyck and along with George Lucas, because they collaborated on that screenplay. And additionally, when Lucas was writing the drafts of Star Wars, as he was getting near to production, he asked Gloria Katz and Willard Huyck to have a look at the screenplay and to punch up any of the dialogue that they wanted to punch up, and that he would look it over and see what he thought. And if you look at the annotated screenplay compilations, you can see situations where they punched up. The number I see reported now and again is 30% of the actual script and a lot of the dialogue. And one of the major contributions that Gloria Katz has given to the Star Wars universe is really the characterization of Princess Leia. And Star Wars is really just the beginning of that influence. I mean, think of Ellen Ripley from the Alien movies, or Trinity from The Matrix, Sarah Connor from the Terminator movies, or Katniss Everdeen from The Hunger Games, Lara Croft from the Tomb Raider franchise. The list goes on and on. All of these indelible characters can trace their lineage to Princess Leia and to the influence that Gloria Katz had on the development of that character. Now, a lot of the news stories that are reporting this are referring back to an interview that Gloria Katz gave to the Mary Sue in 2017 on the occasion of the 40th anniversary of Star Wars. And one of the things that keeps coming up is reference to a Hawksian woman, and that is a reference to the director Howard Hawks, who made movies in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and a little bit on from there. And you might recognize names like Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, or Bringing Up Baby, or Rio Bravo, The Big Sleep. And these movies all featured very strong, sharp-witted women: Rosalind Russell, Marilyn Monroe, Lauren Bacall, Barbara Stanwyck, Katharine Hepburn. These are the kinds of characters and characterizations that Gloria Katz and her husband William Huyck drew on to create the character of Princess Leia. And I think we can all agree that Star Wars and cinema is so much better for their efforts in this regard. Surprisingly, at this point at least, the usual tributes that start, filing in via social media have been comparatively, what's the word I want to use? Lacking in luminaries. I mean, usually when something like this happens, there are a lot of celebrities that come out and make statements in this regard, and there hasn't been a lot of that, actually. The Amblin Entertainment official account said, "Very sad news to report tonight. Gloria Katz, who wrote Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom for us with her husband Willard Huyck, has passed away. Our deepest condolences to Mr. Huyck and his loved ones." Leah Thompson, who, we have to say it, Howard the Duck, said, "My friend Gloria Katz just passed away. She was funny and wry and beautiful. She also worked on American Graffiti and Star Wars. R.I.P. Gloria, and thanks." And I must say that a lot of folks on Twitter have been coming out and saying that Howard the Duck is actually underappreciated in its time, and also point out that this is actually the very first Marvel movie and something very remarkable to be considered in that regard. Edgar Wright, who you would probably best know for Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz and Baby Driver and those movies, said R.I.P. Gloria Katz, writer of American Graffiti and Temple of Doom, worked on the Star Wars screenplay, but also co-directed the truly spooky and hypnotic Messiah of Evil, one of the most underrated horror films and great LA movies of all time. Thank you, Miss Katz, and farewell. And Frank Marshall, who is, of course, Kathleen Kennedy's husband, and, the Kennedy Marshall Company, said a great talent, who was a joy to work with. May she rest in peace. Now, I'm saying that, a lot of luminaries aren't necessarily coming out of the woodwork to pay their respects, but that's not to say that people in general aren't coming out of the woodwork to pay their respects. No, there are actually quite a lot of tributes that are being put out on social media for Gloria, and that is really a beautiful thing. And, when you think about Star Wars and you think about George Lucas and about the fact that he's been on record as saying that he hates writing, that he has to force himself to sit down in a chair and write, he realizes the value of bringing other people into the creative process. And Star Wars was a labor of love that, as Gloria Katz said in her interview with the Mary Sue, that she and her husband William Hike did not take a writing credit because of just how much of a labor of love this thing was to him, and that he just asked them to please punch it up, but that they were going to be uncredited. They were in a cone of silence, as she put it. But Lucas absolutely knew what he had, and they worked together again on Temple of Doom. They worked on Howard the Duck. They worked on Radioland Murders, and that's another movie that, unfortunately, I haven't seen that one myself, and I gather from all the stuff I'm seeing on social media that it is another highly underappreciated movie. And maybe it's just a case where, as sad as it might be, the genius of Gloria Katz may not be entirely recognized in her own time. It may not be until after the fact, when people start going back and discovering just what it was that she added to the world of cinema and to the world of film, that she will get the level of recognition that she deserves. For now, though, I'll simply say something that I feel like I've been saying a little bit too often these days. That line from Meister Eckhart, who once said that if the only prayer you said was thank you, then that would be enough. And so wherever you happen to be in the world today, catching this episode of the show, I hope you'll take a moment and say thank you for Gloria Katz and for what she was able to provide for all of us and for future generations to come. And that's going to do it for this episode of the show. Thank you so much for joining me for it, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.